All right, let's go to email number 2. We're heading to Hanover and Barry.
Yeah, this comes from Barry in Hanover, and he asks, first, thank you for efforts toward the opioid epidemic. What is the state doing to discourage the drug dealers? Has the state considered creating new severe sentencing and advertising it to discourage their activity? I am an affected family member of heroin addiction and would be happy to discuss my experiences and the heartache we as a family have endured over the last 13 years.
Yeah, I think Barry makes a really good point and brings up a very good question. One of the things, I think I've been around now to 50 roundtables just talking to Pennsylvanians all across the Commonwealth to ask what are the issues that they see. And one theme that keeps coming out of this, one of a number of themes, is the need to distinguish between those who are suffering from substance use disorder, the disease, and those who are preying on those who are suffering. And those who are preying, as Barry said, we really need to make sure that we distinguish between those two things. Personally, I'd throw the book at the people who are preying on the substance use disorders sufferers. And Barry is right to suggest that we need to think further about how we make that distinction in terms of sentencing, in terms of the punishment for people who consciously prey on those poor folks who have this disease. So I think Barry makes a good point. The other point is that there are too many people right now who are suffering from this disease who are not. We're not looking. Society doesn't look at them as actually people who are suffering from a disease, and so we need to make sure that distinction is as clear as we can be, as it can be.
I want to go to Michael's question from Pittsburgh next, and this is a long email. I'm sort of going to summarize what Michael wrote about. Jake Schwab was an employee of the Erie Metropolitan Transit Authority, and in 2014 he died in a workplace accident. I'm sure you're familiar with the case at the I think it was at the bus depot up there. And Michael wrote in about legislation that's been introduced, was in last session, and I guess it's coming again this session, that would give public sector workers the same protection, OSHA-like protections that private sector workers have. So Michael had 2 questions for you. One, do you believe public sector workers should have the same rights as their private sector counterparts? And are you willing to spend political capital to ensure that bill gets to the floor for a vote?
That's a great question, Michael. And there is a bill that has been held up, I think, in committee. But I support that bill. I think it does make sense. We want to have a level playing field. That public sector workers should have the same protections as private sector workers. So, I will do what I can to help promote that. The proposal actually came from a Democratic member of the
it was Patrick Harkins, right?
Of the House of Representatives.
I covered there was one hearing on that bill last year. I covered that, and it was some pretty emotional testimony because there was some folks from the Erie Transit Authority that had come down for that.
Yeah, there ought to be the same protections for public sector as for private sector workers. So yes, I support that.
All right. I love the next question from Richard in Bedford.
So Richard asks, when is PennDOT going to upgrade the speed limit on the satellites for the interstates and turnpike? My insurance company will give a major discount through the use of a device plugged into my vehicles. However, when on the interstates going the posted speed limit, the devices show I am speeding and I lose the discount. Please have them post the new speed limits in all caps.
See, I love that question because it's something I wouldn't think of to ask, but I've noticed we've raised the speed limit to 70 on the turnpike and some other places, and my GPS still tells me that I'm speeding if I'm going 70. So these insurance devices are doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's really the responsibility of the private sector company to go to PennDOT and say, okay, what is the right speed here? And that changes all the time. You'll notice that when you go through construction sites, sometimes your machine picks it up and sometimes it doesn't. So it's incumbent on the company who has manufactured your
whatever
gadget,
the device, the GPS
device, your GPS
oriented
device,
yeah.
to stay in contact with all the departments of transportation around the country. It's their responsibility, not the responsibility of the separate departments of transportation to keep them current, because we just don't know who has
Right.
a device.
So I guess the advice to Richard would be, I guess,
Talk to
start
your-
with the insurance company, ask them, who they're dealing with their devices, and then go from there.
I would make a suggestion that you do some due diligence when you buy a device and make sure that they have in their budget, they're not just a low-budget device, that they actually have in their own budget, and presumably embedded in their price, the fact that they actually do keep their devices current.
And Richard, and this is from me, not the governor, I think the best advice is never let an insurance company put one of those things on your car. No good can come of that. A little bit of money that you save now is going to run into trouble down the road.